International students are returning. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from the ABC News. It's discussing international students returning. They're coming back to Australia. The university lobby have done it. They've done it, everyone. Hip hip hurrah! The international students that are propping up our education sector, that are propping up our housing sector, they're coming back. In the midst of a global pandemic where they're shutting down borders, where you can't even travel 5 kilometers from your home in certain parts of Victoria. Let's have a look. I suspected they would do everything they could to support the housing market. But I didn't think they would go this far. I didn't think they would ignore their own restrictions on one hand, giving greater freedoms to foreign agents than to Australian citizens. Now, I honestly feel sorry for the international students because, well, judging from my own university education experience and my friends at uni who were international students, I think a lot of them got ripped off, really, for the quality of education they were getting. And, well, with the US dollar going down, there might be some better opportunities overseas. So let's have a look, though. Let's have a look at this. So South Australia Health defends return of international students amid coronavirus restrictions. Well, if we can do this, if we can have international students returning, maybe we can also have tourism returning. You know, this huge sector that employs so many people, over 600,000, 5.2% of the workforce. So, health authorities are defending a decision to allow 300 international students to enter South Australia amid accusations of double standards from members of Victorian border communities and Adelaide residents with families stuck overseas. Oh, wouldn't that piss you off if you have family overseas that can't even get back in the country, but they're allowing international students to come over? This is just, the optics are terrible. The optics are terrible. The students are going to cop it. You got to feel sorry for them. They just want to come here and learn. And now they're stuck in the middle of this political BS. South Australia will become the first state in the country to welcome flight arrivals of international students as part of a trial announced on Sunday. SA Health said the trial was necessary to help revive the SA economy and the students posed little risk of coronavirus transmission. Well, I'm sure a lot of other people posed little risk. I'm sure most people in the population pose little risk. I'm sure most people in the population pose little risk to actually succumbing to the illness. So why don't we take this trial here and expand it to all other parts of the economy? To other parts of the economy, everyone. So we can have more people actually having jobs. So we can get people out of their houses. So we can have more interaction. The international students will go into mandatory hotel quarantine for 2 weeks before they start their studies. Will they have to pay for it? Will they have to pay for it? Deputy Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Mike Kozak said the international students posed little risk of coronavirus transmission in South Australia, especially since they will quarantine in many hotels. Well, I'm sure that's what they were saying in Victoria too, wasn't it? Or that's what they were saying in New Zealand as well when they were celebrating that they'd conquered this. But the policy has prompted a backlash from members of Victorian border communities locked out of South Australia except for essential travel, and for South Australians with family members who have been unable to get back to the state from overseas. Paul Singleton owns a general store in the Victorian community of Nelson, a few kilometres from the SA border. He told ABC News Breakfast the existing border restrictions have been devastating for him and his community. But they don't care about you, mate. They don't care about the middle class here in Australia. They need to support the powerful universities. The universities that are so dependent on foreign student income. They need to support them. Same thing as this intervention now, the government putting all these restrictions, managing the relationship between Google and news organizations. Same thing. They don't care about you. You know? It's about control. Protecting their buddies. Crony capitalism, everyone. I woke up this morning and I hear that the Morrison government is going to let international students into South Australia. It's a blow and a slap in the face to border communities that contribute significantly to the South Australian economy. A caller to ABC Radio Adelaide this morning, Peter, said his wife had been stuck in Singapore for months. He said her flight to Adelaide had repeatedly been cancelled and delayed, and she was having to pay 4 times the usual price for an airfare to Adelaide. He said he had no problem with the international students being allowed to travel to Australia, but expressed frustration that his wife had not been able to get in. Yeah, that's the thing. It shouldn't be one rule for them and another rule for another party. Okay? You got to let people in. If anything, citizens should be given priority. What's the point of being a citizen then? Citizen. Tax cattle. Another caller said his wife was stuck in Ireland after the death of her mother and is now struggling to get a flight home. She went home because her mum was dying, he said. There's no guarantees she can get out of the country. There's no guarantees she can get on the flight. So border crossings pose a higher risk than students. Really? Really? Dr. Kozak acknowledged it was currently very difficult for some South Australian residents to come home. He said, people crossing the Victorian border posed a more pressing danger than arrivals by international students. We've been having international arrivals for some months now, he said. The arrangements in the hotels have been very tight indeed. A key risk at the moment is across the border in Victoria. Federal Trade Minister Simon Birmingham said international education was a key part of the Australian economy. International education is such a significant employer, he said. South Australia has shown an exceptional ability to manage Medi hotels. The state is a good market to do this because it has excess capacity in quarantine. State Labor Health spokesperson Chris Picton said international students who had remained in Adelaide when the pandemic began were doing it tough. Many were relying on charities and food donations to survive. He called on the state government to explain how it would support the additional students when they arrived and what the cost would be to taxpayers. Why is it that we'd bring in more international students at the same time that clearly there were difficulties in terms of people flying home, he said? Well, because these are the ones that can afford to come here. They're the ones that could afford to get out, and now they're the ones that can afford to get back. So they obviously have the financial means. They want them here and they want their money here. The universities want them here so they can charge them fees. Clearly, there are difficulties in terms of people getting access to employment to support themselves. So class returns at closed schools. Meanwhile, the Barton Senior College has reopened but been closed for 2 weeks. 5 cases were associated with the Inner West School, which focuses on adult education. It led to about 1,400 people being required to quarantine at a Medi hotel or in-home isolation. There have been no recent cases. Principal Eva Canis-Tori said there would be extra support for students and staff as they started to return to campus today. She said there had been a mixed response about going back to school. Some are really just relieved and want things to go back to being as normal as possible, but understandably others are feeling quite anxious. So to manage that, we have a range of well-being support in place for both students and staff, she said. Year 12 student Clara Herodon said the self-isolation made it harder to study. I was a bit lonely, to be honest, and it was hard to find the motivation to actually do school work, she said. So there we have it, everyone. South Australia is bringing back international students. Maybe they'll bring them all back by January next year, at least the ones that can afford it. And no mention of who is paying for the hotel quarantine. What do you think? Do you think this is just another example of how they will literally do everything to support the property industry? Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and I'll adjust my camera in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, have a great day. I will see you in the next episode.